Hey everyone, Mr. Devil here, Kenny Danico, 3-time Stanley Cup champion of the New Jersey Devils, and you're listening to the Uncle Puckers New Jersey Devils podcast with Chris, Dan, Bobby, and Tony, the Uncle Puckers. Let's go Devils!
In about a month, we will be able to hear that for real after the Devils score all their goals.
Probably going to be a smattering of you sucks in there, but
so,
it's
I hate
Jersey.
that though. I hate that
Jersey.
so
Whatever,
much.
man.
It drives me crazy. I hate the Rangers suck chant when we're playing anybody. Guys. We just knocked them out of the playoffs last year. We're not their bitch anymore. We don't have to keep on fucking, it's like this abusive relationship and you just can't get away from it. And it drives me up a wall. Like, let it go. They're over there. We're over here. When we play them, sure, we hate them all the time. I get it. But if we're playing the fucking San Jose Sharks and we're doing a Rangers suck
I'm with you.
I got a problem with that.
I'm with you on that for the Rangers suck chant thing, and then Flyer swallow and all that follow up. But I've given up not liking the "you suck" part of the goal because they keep changing the goal song. Remember, and people kept finding a way to put in "you suck" in there.
What's the other one? Flyers do what?
It's Rangers suck, Flyers swallow, and Crosby watches. I believe.
I just wanted to hear that.
You just wanted to hear it clear on the radio. Gotcha. Yeah, but the "you suck" thing, and I got to say, I'm in the games, and I get into it. I do feel like it would be better if it was kind of reserved for a more appropriate moment. Like, I've been to games where it's 5-0, we score one goal, and they're chanting "you suck," and I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, a game-winning goal or go-ahead goal or even a tying, some of these things, they definitely have their place. But the fans love it, so I do it too.
I can't even wrap my head around just getting up and cheering for a goal if you're down 5-0, and then you just get some garbage time fucking goal it's like, really, we're cheering for this? Like, it's one goal, and
it's tough. I let that one goal go by, and then the second goal, you're like, the third goal, like, all right, now we're talking here.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember watching a Raiders game probably like about 10 years ago or 9 years ago, and Raiders were down like 34-3, and we scored a touchdown. We intercepted, got a touchdown. The Raiders did. And our guy started jumping up and down, and I think it was against the Cardinals, I want to say. And the Cardinal walked up behind our dude and tapped him on the shoulder and pointed at the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah, man, I've never liked that either. It's weird. I always wonder, actually, sometimes I watch a game and it is like 5-0 or 4-0, and there's like 1 minute left and they score, and there's a little bit of excitement, I guess, but I don't even know why you'd even feel that.
You just get excited that you didn't get shut out. I mean, that's basically it. But,
I mean, football, Tony, some of those guys they got that shit choreographed. They're just waiting for a touchdown so they can do it. They're going to do it no matter what the score is. They're like, I practiced this shit all week. I'm doing my dance. They call their buddies over, they're doing a can.
Now they score, they all run to the camera and pose.
Yeah.
It's like
I mean, some of them are pretty good. I like some of the celebrations. I thought that last year's was good when Harrison Smith from the Vikings, an interception back for a touchdown, and all the guys lined up like bowling pins, and he pretended to throw the ball, and they all went down. Okay, that was kind of cool. Some of them that you see are just really stupid. Like even Justin Jefferson, like he's got like 3 or 4 new gritty dances for when he scores. Well, let's see if Kirk can actually get you one in the fucking end zone this year.
Yeah.
But, we talk a lot about football on this show, from time to time. And I have to say, and I've said it on the last show, like, I always liked the Jets. They were always my second favorite team. And I really didn't think that I would be a Jet fan again after 5 plays, and I am, because Rodgers is the one guy I fucking hate, and he's not there anymore. So, that's just
Chris was like, I'm so angry for 75 seconds, and then he was like, shit, I got nothing to be angry about anymore.
I tell you, when he went down, and I was just sitting there, I'm like, that's the season. That's it. I knew right away the way his leg buckled. I was like, that's either an ACL or an Achilles, man. This boy's done, and at this point in a guy's career who's pushing 40, is he ever going to get back on the field? Because I don't think so.
I give the Jets credit. It's a small little thing, but I do give them credit. They actually pulled that game off. I mean,
hey, look, their defense is for real. Breece Hall is a fucking dog. That boy can play. Garrett Wilson is amazing. They have all the pieces, but then they have Zach.
Well, they have a problem though. See, it's like it's a very Mets thing to do. See, that was a very Jets thing to do. I was watching that game. I was watching that stadium. It's like that new teal green, whatever it is, and it's lit up. The place looked amazing. The crowd was so ready to go, and then it was like everything stopped, and I was like, "Holy shit, that is so Jets!"
But
it really is.
The other team that plays there, at least the Jets managed to pull off a fucking very exciting win. Not the Giants, who I said this on this show. I said it on this show when we had Neil from Hockey State of Mind on here. We were talking. I was right around the time that Daniel Jones got paid, and I said that dude should give some of that fucking money to Ed Donatel, who was the defensive coordinator for the Vikings last year, because those are the two games that made Daniel Jones look great, because the Minnesota Vikings defense, especially their pass pro, was a fucking atrocious last year. And then, no, this is going to be the big year for Daniel Jones. He looked like fucking Daniel Jones on Sunday. To go out and get embarrassed by a division rival 40-0, you can't even put a field goal up. You can't even get your team in the field goal range. Dude, they have big problems in the Giants country, that's for sure.
But I tell you why they don't have problems. For this week at least, I will say, my Raiders – first place.
The Chargers lost, so you are alone in first place.
First place.
There you go.
Garoppolo, let me tell you. I mean, Garoppolo did a Garoppolo performance. Like, this is the thing with him. I have to admit, after this game, I was like, okay, I'm down with Jimmy G. Problem with him is he gets hurt all the time. Doesn't put up tons of points every game, but finds a way to win. And
he always does. Always
does. It's never like a sparkling performance, but he always does. And the one thing we would have lost that game last year probably. And whenever we beat the Donkeys, it always makes me happy. So
Jimmy Garoppolo has always been a winner, no matter where he was. Yeah. People forget he brought San Francisco to a Super Bowl. This guy's played in NFC Championship games. He knows what he's doing out there. His problem is he can't stay healthy. If he stays healthy this year, you got the Chiefs. Didn't look like the Chiefs, and I know they'll be fine.
Oh yeah, it's
the Chargers. I think. Offensively, I love Justin Herbert. He might be one of my top 3 or 4 favorite quarterbacks in the league to watch. I love the kid, and he's got a hell of an arm. He's got weapons around him, but the coaching always I just think that Brendan Staley is not the best head coach. He kind of puts his team into position a lot to just fail. So I don't know how they're going to do. I think that the recipe of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson is going to be toxic by week 6 or 7.
Don't you feel like Wilson's just done?
I do. I think he fell off a cliff, and I do. I think he's toast. And I look at the Raiders, and if they can just keep their shit together, and Garoppolo can stay healthy, they have a very balanced attack on offense, and they have a good defense. If they can get a little bit more pass rush, and it's not just Max Crosby all the time,
that's a problem right now.
They're going to be all right.
And Jacoby Myers was awesome. He had 2 touchdowns yesterday. He was, because the thing is they're covering Adams. That's the thing is they're trying to stop Adams.
Sure.
And Myers just had a hell of a game. Like you said, Max Crosby is we need help on the defense. I saw it last night. It was a Raider game, though. It was kind of sloppy, a lot of penalties. It was just,
too, it's week 1. Everybody's sloppy on week 1.
And that's what I want to ask you, Chris, actually, about that, what you're saying about sloppy on week 1. Do you feel, and I heard someone else talking about this on another show.
Yes.
The starters are not playing, right?
Exactly. They should start. They should be playing a little bit in preseason, especially, and maybe not. Look, if you have, Patrick Mahomes, and even Andy Reid played him for a series or 2 in one of the preseason games. Or you have one of these guys, a Josh Allen and Mahomes. You don't want to play them maybe in the preseason. I'm okay with that. But there are certain, especially position groups, I think need to. I think your starting offensive line needs to see a few series before the game 1. They have to get their timing down. They have to, and they should be in there with the quarterback. At least give them a couple of series. You see so many bad offside penalties lining up, in the neutral zone, and all these illegal formation bullshit that happens early in the year. I think a big part of it is because a lot of teams now don't play their starters at all. I look at, I go back to the Vikings. They're my team. They didn't play any starters. And then they go into week 1, a completely winnable game. You turn the ball over 3 times in the first half. Sloppy football. There's no reason, if you take those 3 turnovers away from that game, and the bad penalty when they had Tampa in field goal range, and then Jay Ward lined up off in the neutral zone, it's a first down. And now they're first and goal, and they score a touchdown. You take those 4 plays away, Minnesota wins by double digits. Easy. But
I agree.
But you can't play that way in the NFL and expect to win.
You guys got Philly, Thursday night now?
Yep, the day after tomorrow.
Game.
So we're going to be 0-2. Yeah, we'll be 0-2. But hey, you know what? It is what it is. I'm used to it. I'm pushing 50. I've never seen my boys in a Super Bowl, and I know that's probably not going to happen this year. But with all that being said, we have a really good fucking hockey team here in New Jersey, guys, that have a shot.
30 days.
They have a shot. We are 1 month away, so we'll, I guess, dive into a little bit of hockey. We're the Uncle Puckers, Chris, Tony, and Bobby tonight. Mr. Dan needed the night off. So I thought today we'd do some picks in the divisions. Let's see who you guys think are going to win. We'll start in the West, talk a little bit about how you guys feel about that. We'll go over where they were last year, where you think they're going to end up this year. So we'll start with the Central, which was won by the Colorado Avalanche last year with 109 points. The Dallas Stars came in right on their heels with 108. And then the Minnesota Wild with 103. Then you have the first wild card went to the Jets. They had 95 points. And then the Predators at 92, the Blues at 81, the Coyotes at 70, and the Blackhawks at 59 were dead last in the Atlantic Division. So, we'll start with Bobby. What do you think of the Atlantic Division? Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to put up a fight? And who do you think is going to end up dead last?
Central, you mean?
I'm sorry. I said, what did I say? Pacific? I'm sorry. I meant Central.
Yeah, we were – okay. I told you before we got started, right, that I don't really know of too many transactions that happen on the other side. So I wasn't really prepared to do this as a full list. So if anyone knows any, key moves and stuff, remind me as we do this.
Today went to Colorado.
Yeah, well, that's good. Got 2
That's something.
He'll do good over there. So I think I got it mostly the same, to be honest. I did wind up doing a full list, so I just kind of went gut, not statistic based,
okay,
just
great.
how I feel right now. And that is, I think the Stars are going to actually outpace the Avalanche just some points to take the division on top. Then I got the Avalanche behind them, followed by the Jets, the Wild, the Predators, the Blues, and then I think I just flip-flopped the Blackhawks and the Coyotes. Just give the Blackhawks a little bit of love with Bedard, make up a few more points. But no major moves there other than maybe saying that I'm really high on the Stars. I think I had them for the Stanley Cup last year. It's mostly the same team from what I recall, so take them.
So you got the Stars to win, the Avs to come in second.
Yes.
And the third place you went with Winnipeg.
I did, yeah.
Okay, so you think that's going to be coming out of the Pacific. All right. So in your case, we would have a Winnipeg-Colorado first round. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
What about you, Tone? What do you got?
Well, I did not do a full list. But
no, that's fine.
I have so I actually think Colorado is going to get that division this year. I not even the Tatar move, just the moves they've made. I think they're still a great team from last year, and I think Dallas will come in second. That's pretty much where I see that division at.
I agree. I think it's going to end up the top 3 where they were last year. I do think it'll be Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, 1, 2, 3. Colorado, if they can stay healthy, and Cale Makar can stay healthy, McKinnon, Rantanen, now they got Tatar, who's a solid vet. I mean, this team is fucking good, man. They are really good. They're well coached. They're coming 2 years off of a Stanley Cup. They went into that first round against Seattle last year with a ton of injuries, and then Makar got suspended, a couple of games. I like Colorado. I like Colorado to win the West. I'm going to say that right now. I think they will be in the Cup final. I don't really know how the Jets are going to do this year. I mean, they're still now talking about possibly shipping Scheifele off somewhere. It looks like Hollebuck is going to stick around with
Heard
them.
rumblings about possibly an extension too, which kind of played into this for me.
Yeah, and if that's the case, and hey, if they want to pay Connor Hollebuck, that's his home. I'm all for it. That's fine.
You know what? For me too, I usually am pretty, big on the Avalanche, and I'm such a homer on our side. Sometimes I look at these things, I'm like, I got to pull some of these reins down too. That's another reason why I just said I got to come out of my comfort zone and just mix it up a little bit.
I think Dallas is going to be really good, and a lot of people have Dallas high up on their charts. I think Dallas is going to be a good team. I mean, they only lost that division by 1 point last year. That can be a good battle. Dallas is good. They have good goaltending. They have their deep team. They have 4 good lines. I think Minnesota just needs some scorers. It can't just be Kirill all the time. They got to be able to get some scoring other places. And you saw it when Kaprizov got hurt. They went from 4, 5, 6 goals a game to back to trying to win 1-2 games. And I just don't know. Without him, I don't think that they're too much of a threat. But with him, they're a good team. I don't like what Nashville's done this offseason. I mean, I just think that they dumped a bunch of contracts and then signed a bunch of old dudes again. And I just kind of feel like I don't know what they're doing. St. Louis, it looks like this could really be a year that they just start. If they go off to a slow start, I think they're going to have a fire sale there. And I could see Berube maybe being gone. I think the Coyotes are going to do definitely better than last year, but I actually think they're going to put a team out on the ice that can compete. And if you remember, they were tough to play at Mullet Arena last year. They played they beat some really good teams there. So I don't think that you can sleep on the Coyotes. I don't, of course.
I think for a while there, like the only time they won, they were beating like top 10 teams.
That's usually how that goes. That's usually how that goes, though. I mean, that's usually...
they get themselves up for those games, and other teams take them very lightly, and then they get caught, and it's like, oh shit, we're down 3-0, and you can't catch up. I think
it's always when they beat you on the important games too. You notice that when you're playing in those, like you're trying to get into playoffs, it's always those teams that have had nothing to play for like 4 weeks come and smack you in the balls.
But now they have something to play for. Even if it's we just beat Dallas tonight and we knock them out of first place in the division or whatever it is, at least you take something out of it. I think that the Coyotes are going to do better than 70 points.
We had a decade of that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. The Blackhawks, I don't know what to make of the Blackhawks. On paper, if you take away Connor Bedard, they're dog shit. They're not going to be good. They had 59 points last year. We have this huge X factor in Connor Bedard. Who knows how this kid's going to play? I could see the Blackhawks ending up last in this division again. I mean, I don't know. And I could also see him moving up to like 4th or 5th or 6th.
That's why I gave him 11 points or so, 4.5, 5 wins. Overtaking Coyotes, nothing major.
There's a lot of good teams in that division.
Were you guys surprised how long it took? Tatar got $1.5 million. Were you guys surprised? Like his contract wasn't. I guess the Devils had decided to move on with him. Yeah, 1 year. You got Miles Wood over there with him now. Jonathan Drouin's over there. Who else did they pick up? Ross Colton. I mean, they made some moves.
I'm surprised for the money and the player that it took that long, but what made clear to me is that this had nothing to do with Tatar for the Devils and everything to do with the fact that at some point Fitzgerald wanted those 1 or 2 slots for the young kids. He has to see what he has in there. He has to play them. Yeah. Because for that money, I would have taken him back in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? We got the room.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tatar, and I thought he had a good year last year, and I like that he served his 2 years in Jersey well. For what he was here. He was here with the young guys, kind of just show him away a little bit. And I think he did that well. I'm fine with him being gone. I like the idea of these young kids coming in. I'm really curious to see how Nolan Foot's going to be this year. There was and we'll get into it later, but there was a couple of trade options that they had out, like Devils that could possibly be trade bait this year. And we'll talk about that. But McLeod was one of those dudes. I would not be shocked if we deal McLeod this year, just with all the people that we have. And, who knows, like we talked about, a couple of times on this show, we don't know what's going to happen with this report that's going to come out hopefully sometime soon. Who knows?
Listen, we love the role he plays as a 4th-line center.
Yes.
And it is maybe a notch above in certain elements, but we do have a lot of depth.
But the other question is, too, when it comes to Michael McLeod and where we drafted him, and what was expected of him. Right. Is a 4th-line center and a guy that gives you, 15, 16 points a year, is that what you wanted for Michael McLeod? I don't think so.
No, it's
if
not.
You take away McLeod's face-offs and how dominant he is in that faceoff circle. If you take that away, what is he giving you?
Well, for starters, for this year, I'm hoping that what he gives us is a glimpse of more confidence based on what he did in the playoffs. That would be the best case scenario. He's going to come out and score a respectable 10 goals or something and just feed it a little bit more. Because otherwise, for as good as he is in that role, yeah, he could be expendable. It's certainly not going to kill us.
No.
No, I like Mike McLeod too. I think he is a guy, though, that if you're not a Devils fan, you probably don't really know who he is. He's not like a big name on the team. You're not like, he's not one of those guys that's a household name. And his face-off is definitely his big thing. But, I think he had I thought last year he actually had a good, decent year. And hopefully all this passes and we're not talking about him in a couple weeks about some other shit. So, because I really did like Michael McLeod. It's guys like him and Bastion that they're not like the big names, but they're part of the makeup that just, seems to make the machine work.
And if you drafted Michael McLeod in the 3rd or 4th round, I think that you are looking at his production and you're saying we couldn't ask for more of a guy that we got in the 3rd or 4th round. That's now a solid bottom 6 centerman. He's great on the faceoffs. He wins 75% of his draws, and he can chip in for, like we said, 6 to 10 goals a year. That's great. But when you're drafted in the 1st round and you're supposed to, be a legitimate offensive threat, and you're not, well, that's where I think that McLeod's stock drops when it comes to that. So, but let's go to the Pacific Division. Won by the Stanley Cup champions Las Vegas Golden Knights with 111 points. The Edmonton Oilers came in second with 109. The LA Kings with 104. Seattle Kraken takes that last wild card spot with 100 points. Calgary Flames just on the outside looking in with 93. Vancouver 83 and trying to figure shit out. But Quinn Hughes was named captain of the Vancouver Canucks this year. So
we're not getting him this year.
Yeah. So any delusions that we had that there was going to be all 3 Hughes boys on the team, it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. San Jose had a horrible year with 60 points, and then the Anaheim Ducks were just abysmal at 58. So where are you going with that, Bobby?
So for the bottom 4, I'm not moving anything. I see bottom 5, Kraken, Flames, Canucks, Sharks, Ducks. I just think they're going to stay the same. I just moved around a little bit on the top. I think maybe this is the year the Oilers put up a few more points, so they get the first seed. I'm big on the Kings making further improvements, so I got them actually as number 2, and then a respectable 3rd for the Knights.
All right.
I'm going to stick with the Knights at the top. And Edmonton second, I think, in that. I just picture the Knights. The Knights just have a hell of a lineup. I mean, Mark Stone, as we know, Chris is a big fan of him. Barbashev. I mean, the team is just a great team. Obviously, they're going to be Stanley Cup champs, as we know from this past year. But I just picture them not really losing anything. I mean, they're going to be a tough team again. And Edmonton, Edmonton would be the team I would think could pass them, but I just think Vegas is going to be a little bit better.
Okay. I think there will be a bit of a hangover, a little Stanley Cup hangover for Vegas. They had a long year. They won it all. They've been partying all summer. Is it going to take a little while for them to kind of get back into their groove? I don't know. I'm just saying that I think this is Edmonton's year. I think Edmonton is going to win the Pacific. And Edmonton is deeper than they were last year. I like some of the moves that they made. I really like the Oilers. And again, I'm going with Edmonton, Colorado in the Western Conference Final. And
does McDavid put up more points this year than last year?
Man, I don't know.
You would. Okay,
so a normal way of thinking would be somebody would say, no, he's not going to repeat that. But then it's fucking Connor McDavid. So is he going to probably beat that? He's just that good. So I really like Edmonton. I love Vegas. I think they're going to be right there again, and they're going to come in second. I do think the Kings are better than they were last year, especially with PLD. I like that move. I don't like him, and I think for this year at least he's going to give LA everything he's got until he decides he doesn't like playing there anymore and he cries for a trade. But I'm saying don't sleep on the Kraken coming in 4th here. I think the Kraken can end up in that top 3. That is a good hockey team out there. They're fast. They have, 4 really, really deep lines. They had more 20-goal scorers than any other team in the league last year. So I'm kind of up in the air about the third place. So
I kind of feel like the Kraken are going to take a step. I don't know why, and I don't hate the Kraken at all. I mean, I have a feeling they're going to take a step back, actually. I think last year they might have overachieved a little bit.
Okay, I can see where you're going with this, and there is some definite some truth to that, because they did kind of, nobody was expecting it, last year. So, when you're flying under the radar like that, like we've said a million times with the Devils, I don't know how much I agree with it, but it's said a lot, they're not going to surprise anybody this year. So Seattle's not going to surprise anybody this year. And I just think that they're kind of built for this. And that's also a bit of a love affair with them. I don't like the LA Kings. I like Seattle. So if I can say that they're going to go and get the 3rd seed, I don't know, but I think it will be a battle between, I think the top 4. I mean, I think the Oilers and the Knights are going to be battling for first, and I think that the Kings and the Kraken are going to be battling for the 3rd. As far as the bottom 4 teams, the Flames can do something. They can make the playoffs again. They can kind of bounce back. As far as the bottom 3, the Canucks, the Sharks, the Ducks, I don't really know what the hell's going on with any one of those teams. So that's going to be interesting. So Bobby and I both have the Oilers. Tony went with Vegas, and I think Bobby went with Dallas, and Tony and I went with Avalanche to win the Central, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, and we'll jump over to the Eastern Conference as soon as we give a shout-out to our DraftKings sponsor. Football is back and in full swing with another week of epic games, and DraftKings Sportsbook has got you covered on the action for every single one of them. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL, and new customers can bet $5 in football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of not 1, but 2 new offers every game day this September. So get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN to sign up. New customers can bet $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.sot1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction and void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. So remember, that's DraftKings Sportsbook app, code THPN.
And this is Stanley Cup champion Jim Dowd, and you're listening to Uncle Pucker's New Jersey Devil podcast.
All right, we're back. So now we will jump over to the Western Conference. The Eastern Conference, the other one. We'll start in the Atlantic Division. The Boston Bruins had 775 points last season. 135 points for first place in the division and the entire NHL. President's Trophy winner. Maple Leafs 111 came in second. The Lightning at 98. The first wild card went to the Florida Panthers. Actually, they had the second wild card at 92 points. The Sabres 1 point behind them at 91. Senators 86. Red Wings 80. And the Canadiens on the bottom with 68 points. Bobby, where are you going with this Atlantic Division in the East?
Yeah, so again, I just don't see too many spots for movement, right, based on what I know. But I have the Leafs taking the division this time. I have Boston falling back pretty far, but not abysmal, as we have talked about on some of the shows, like how far can they fall? And it could be awfully far. But for this, I got the Leafs taking it over. I got the Sabres pulling a magic run out and taking second place.
Wow.
followed by the Lightning, and then Boston. That leaves the Panthers out of the playoffs, Senators, the Red Wings, and the Canucks. And again, this is all just gut going now. How's it feel for some of these teams?
I love that take. I
Yeah.
fucking love it. Buffalo coming in second. I love that.
They don't need a
Then
ton of points to
mine.
Yeah, what do you got?
No,
Yeah, let's
you
hear
know,
it.
You probably
So-
have the Florida Panthers winning it.
No, I don't actually. And you know what? It was a tough not for first. I think Toronto has this division. I think they've done too many additions. They're tougher. It is for them. This is a very, very every season now is pretty much if they lose, it's hell for them during the offseason. It's like a big fucking charade. But I've got them coming in first, and believe it or not, a team that I think Ottawa I'm going to pick for the 2 spot. And the 3 spot, I'm going to go Florida. I think they just signed Jake Anderson. Yeah, they just signed Jake Sanderson on the defenseman. That was their 5th pick overall in 2020. He's a hell of a defenseman, young guy. I love Brady Tkachuk, as you know. There's just that team. I mean, Ottawa's going to be a dangerous team. I really feel that way. So I'm going to pick them for the 2nd spot.
What else? Is that it?
So I got Toronto first,
Okay.
Ottawa second, then Florida I have third. Because I do think Florida is going to be. I think we were saying a couple shows ago that someone thought they weren't going to actually be better this year. I do think they'll be better. I think that they just have too many talented players on that team, and I think Matthew Tkachuk is such a leader there now that I just think that he won't allow them not to be better this year.
All right. I don't agree with. I have Toronto winning that division, so I think we're all in agreement. The Maple Leafs, it's their division to lose. They are stacked. If goaltending can hold up, this team is for real. And like you said, Tone, they got to do it at some point. I mean,
It's time.
You just signed, Austin Matthews to a big contract. This guy is, one of the greatest players in the world. You have a lot of good guys around him. If you can't do it in the next couple of years, yeah, something's definitely wrong. But I think this is their division to win. I think they're going to be a really good hockey team. I think Tampa Bay has a big bounce back. I think they get to, maybe 107, 108, 109 points. That's going to be good enough for second. The Buffalo Sabres will be in third. They are going to make a run. They will end up in third place. As far as the 4th goes, I'm going with the Ottawa Senators. I think Ottawa and Buffalo are going to come out of nowhere, and they're going to battle like hell. And I think that Ottawa is maybe a year away. I think Buffalo, this is their year. So I'm going to take them. I see, the Panthers dropping down, the Senators, the Red Wings and the Canadians being where, they are. But I think Florida is going to have a rough year. They're starting with a couple of guys on the injured reserve. They played a lot of hockey and a lot of physical hockey in those playoffs. I just don't know if they could repeat that little bit of magic that they caught. So, I like everybody you're talking about. I love Tkachuk. I like the way they're coached. I like the way they play. I just think there's better teams in that division.
And you have to give, like we were talking about, I think last week, Paul Maurice, he's a guy, he stepped away from Winnipeg when he had a good team there. Went over to Florida and got that team, however you want to look at it, got him in the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you a question. Yes, he had a very good team in Winnipeg. And then when he left Winnipeg, the reason that he said that he left was because I got this team as far as I can. So he was just basically saying
internal
these guys,
I think, right?
they don't have the fucking team together and this and that. I don't like that when a coach says that. But he did come to Florida, and they don't get Matthew Tkachuk last year. This team is down with the Red Wings and the Canadians.
He's a game changer.
Yeah, he was a game changer. He changed the entire locker room. He did it. I love him, but I look at their goaltending and I say, is Bobrovsky the guy? I don't know. They lost, Gudis. They lost a couple of dudes. I know they brought over Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
Yep.
They got him now. They have a couple of pieces. They're going to be okay, but I just think that his brother is going to leapfrog him this year. I think Ottawa will be, 4th place, possibly even take that division. Boston, I see dropping. I see Boston. I don't know how the hell Boston gets into the playoffs next year.
What's interesting, Chris, is Brady Tkachuk is a player. Like there's certain players we're talking about, Solani and them guys like that, right? Last week, Brady Tkachuk is a guy that I will watch the Ottawa Senators play just because he's on the ice.
Yeah.
Like, he's one of those kind of players. We used to watch like a Pat LaFontaine or those. You just watch it for this one player, and they are a team that I will watch them just to watch him play because he is, all around too. Not only he's physical, he's just when he's on the ice, it.
Yeah, I don't think that he is at the level of his brother yet, though. I think that Matthew is at a different level right now, and I think Brady will get there. And those are two dudes that I can see in the future playing together. At some point in the future, I do think the Tkachuk boys play together. But the more I go over Boston's lineup, and they have the goaltending, they have a couple of studs on defense, they got a couple of studs on offense, but they have nobody in the middle, and I just think that that's going to hurt them unless they make a trade. When I heard they were possibly going after Mark Scheifele, I thought that can fix a lot of shit. My tune changes then. Yeah. So in the next 30 days or so, they go out and get themselves a quality centerman. Because, look, we've watched Pavel Zacha for 8 years, and he's not a number one center.
Yeah.
And the reason he had such a good year with Boston last year is because they played him in the right spot. They made him their number 3 center. He got, a decent amount of ice time, and he produced. But it wasn't all put on his shoulders like he was here. And I'll say the same with Miles Wood when he was here. A couple other guys that are not those leaders, but we didn't have anybody else. So we made.
You got to go against teams' top lines now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sheltering here. So, and that's a big eye opener for a lot of players.
Yes.
And like you said, like I don't want to be as down on Boston, but then I look at the other teams and I believe in momentum and I believe in just like time. You could just feel these teams are coming along, and that means points have to give. And Boston's got a lot of points to give because, like you said, they had 767 points. So they got to come down. They can come down 30, 40 points, still be a good team because I think the Sabres are coming. I like your point about Tampa.
35 points. All right. So let's say 35 points is 17 games. Right around, points. Let's just say, right? Yeah. So if they were to lose 17 more games, they're still a 100-point team.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I think that's the thing with them is it's hard to. We all know that they've lost a lot and they changed a lot in that team, but just because of how they played last year, I can't say something in my brain says to me, well, you can't really count Boston out.
You can't. But here's the thing: even if the team didn't change at all, you're still looking at coming down to earth from 135 points
of course,
to maybe a 112, 115. So right off you're talking historic season, you're 20 points down. Then you lose those guys. Now you got to count for those points. And this is where we're getting to a 100-point team or maybe below.
And I think there's more to it than just, they lost the point production of Patrice Bergeron. They lost their fucking leader. They lost their heart and soul with Patrice Bergeron. That is, I get it. Charlie McAvoy is probably going to be the new captain. He's a hell of a player. Lindholm's a great player. But you're losing a guy for, the better part of 12, 13 years that this guy was the heart and soul of your team. And I just think a loss like that is really hard to come out of, especially when you got the Senators and the Sabres that are really looking primed to make a good run. I think they're going to be really good teams. So I think it is.
I also believe that with Boston, I said it before, I've heard it from other people. I do believe that their additions at the end of that season last year before the playoffs came actually might have messed them up. You didn't have enough playing time for their guy. It was like you added too much tools to the shed, actually. And we all love Bertuzzi, right? I would have loved to have him in Jersey, but it seemed like it messed up the chemistry maybe.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times it does.
It is amazing to go that over the top when you were that dominant.
Right.
Like if ever there was a year to maybe stand pat, that was probably it.
Yeah, the dicking around. Like you add a player, I get it. When you start adding 2, 3, 4 players, that's
line
when,
changes now. Every
you're
defensive pairing,
20 guys on the ice. I mean, it's not like a football team where you got 54 dudes on your roster. That's it. Like you only have so many spaces to fill. So you managed to blow everybody away in the NHL, and then you start dicking around with it. I think there is some truth to that.
And every guy that was in the market at the end last year, they were like, Boston was tied to them. It was like, Jesus, how many guys do they have to get? How do they keep on adding these dudes? Yeah. And of course, all the dudes wanted to go there because they all thought, well, this is probably
this is a year.
Cup. Yeah, this is you're going to get a ring.
Statistically, it looked like their best shot for sure.
Yeah. I just if I was a Boston Bruin fan, I'd be really worried going into this year. But I also remember this time last year where everybody was, the pros and looking at the national media and everybody looking at the Boston Bruins, they were saying they're not going to be that good. I think that maybe their run was, and then they just go out and have the greatest season in history. So yeah, maybe we can all be eating our words by the end of the year, but I just don't see it. I'm really looking forward to seeing Ottawa and Buffalo this year, man. They're going to be fun. So, which brings us to the Metropolitan Division. We all kind of know how this went, right? Carolina with 113, our Devils right behind them at 112, the Rangers at 107, Islanders at 93, took that first wild card. Penguins missing out on the playoffs with 91 points. Washington having a really, really bad year at 80. The Flyers struggled at 75, and things are probably going to get worse. And the Blue Jackets were just riddled with injuries, 59 points. That makes up the Metropolitan Division. It's all you, Bob.
Yeah, so we've kind of done this before, so I don't think there's any big surprises here. I have maintained that the Devils can take first in this division. I always point out the fact that we lost it by 1 point, and during a year where we were, for whatever reason, gambling too much with some of the goaltending situation, which to me directly added to a few losses at least, which means we would have won the division. But what I really wanted to do before I put this together is I wanted to find the time today, and I didn't, if I were to remove both teams' best streak. The Devils had a 13 game. I don't know what Buffalo had. Did they have an 8 or 9? I'm not sure.
You mean Carolina?
I'm in Carolina. I'm not sure. Or if that didn't work out, I wanted to look at maybe their best 2-week window just to see if you pulled those out and looked at the rest of the season as an average, then how far would we have been from Carolina, or how big or how close? Because that 13-game winning streak for us, I mean, that was a huge jump up. If you would take that out and play, 650 hockey or something like that, we're definitely several points down. I did want to look at that, but even if I had, I'm still sticking with the fact that I feel like the Devils can just outpace them just by a game or two, beat Carolina. So that would put us with the Rangers in third, kind of what we've been saying all year. I have picked up on the Penguins after, talking a little bit about what they've done. So I'll put them in fourth. Still have the Islanders after that. And then I got the Caps, the Blue Jackets, and the Flyers, and I might even be willing to throw the Blue Jackets in front of the Caps. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I really think the Caps are a sinking ship, and the Blue Jackets aren't as bad as their points were, so it's very possible that they overtake them, but it's kind of moot at that point because those are going to be the three on the bottom.
Carolina did have a 10-game winning streak last year. They had a 7-game winning streak. They had 2 5s, 3 4s. Okay. So 10 was theirs. So they had a 10-game winning streak.
Our game streak was 3 longer. So if you pull those out and look at the rest of the season, it'd be very interesting to see who has more points. It probably would be Carolina still.
Yeah.
But again, not by much, and not with – there was a lot of stuff that we did on that team last year, bringing in people again, messing around with the goalie thing really got to me there. It was just too much.
It was. They had no idea what the hell they were doing with that. That was really worrisome. What about you, Tone?
Do I think the Devils could win the division? Of course.
Sorry, 11, Bobby, 11. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tone.
That's okay.
It was 11 was their win streak. So they had a 4-game win streak, a loss in overtime, rattled off 11 straight. Then they had 4 losses in a row.
Wow, that was almost a 16-game winning streak then.
Yeah,
16-game win streak.
There's one overtime loss in the middle, and that was it. So go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, no, I think the Devils could win the division, but I don't think they will. And I don't want to. We always talk about now everyone has so much expectations for the Devils. I almost feel like I wish they were a little bit more in the background, So I'm going to put them in the background on my list because I don't want to jinx them. I'm going to say it's going to be the same as Carolina first, Devils second, Rangers third in this. And Columbus, I don't think is going to be. I think Babcock's actually going to kind of mess up that team a little bit this year with the young players. So I don't think they're going to have a better season. I do think Pittsburgh's going to be better. I think, as we've talked about before, when you got Crosby and Malkin, you can't just give up, right? You have to supply them with tools to succeed, and I think they definitely have done a little bit of that. So I think the Penguins, are they going to make the playoffs? I don't know, but they could I wouldn't be shocked if they wound up jumping in there, at the end. But I'm going to go with Carolina first and Devils second.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth with the Devils and the Hurricanes for first place. And the Hockey News just put out their big picks, their big addition for the start of the season. They have Carolina winning the Cup. A lot of people have Carolina winning the Cup. I kind of feel like I really like Carolina as far as, their potential to win the Cup. I still worry about where are they going to get their scoring from. It's hard for me to look at these two teams and then look at them and not, even though I'm not trying not to wear the Homer hat, but I'm looking at your hat and I'm looking at these two teams and I'm just saying the Devils should be able to just outscore any of the problems that they have.
Here's a question for you, Chris.
Yeah.
If we had a goal, so you think the only difference in your mind would be is if we had number one starting goalie, if we had one of the top 5 guys, would that just totally flip your decision, you think, on
If
this?
we had one of the top 5 guys in net, it would. I think I would have them. They'd be my pick to win the Cup. They would, not just the division, but the whole fucking thing, because that's the only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about. But again, I do think they could outscore a lot of their problems. I said it before, the old Ric Flair saying, to be the man, you got to beat the man. I'm going to go with Carolina until the Devils say otherwise. I'm going to go Devils 2. I think it's going to be another dogfight. It's going to be a point, maybe 2. As far as third place, I've said it before. I'm still saying the Rangers and the Penguins are going to battle that out. I don't know who's coming out of that. I'd probably have to lean a little bit more towards the Rangers just because of Shesterkin, but I think Pittsburgh was fucking embarrassed last year. Yeah. It wasn't that the Penguins didn't make the playoffs. It was how they didn't make the playoffs, especially those last 2 games against Chicago and Columbus, a team that collectively, if I have this right, had 122 points. So collectively, those 2 teams weren't even as good as didn't even have as many points as the Bruins. Right. So you couldn't beat those 2 teams, and if you beat them, Florida's gone, they're in, and Florida's whole magical run doesn't happen. I think they were embarrassed last year. I don't think that's going to happen. Sidney Crosby does not seem to hit a wall. He doesn't seem like age is getting to him. I mean, he's still a fucking great player. So I think Pittsburgh and the Rangers will be battling for the 3rd spot. I do see between the Islanders, the Capitals, the Flyers, the Blue Jackets, I see all of them kind of taking a step back. I think the Islanders will probably be ahead of the class. So right now, gun to my head, I go Carolina, Devils, Penguins, Rangers, Islanders, Capitals, Blue Jackets, Flyers. That's where I would go. I do think the Blue Jackets are going to be better, but like I said, on my Eastern Conference power rankings, I have them at number 14. The only teams I have below them are the Montreal Canadiens, who I think are going to struggle still, and the Philadelphia Flyers, which we've discussed on this show many times, are doing this whole rebuild thing by design. Yeah. This is what they want to do. This is what they need to do, because the culture in there, and I think I think right now they're just kind of in a holding pattern as far as their coach goes. I think if they struggle a little bit this year, or Tortorella starts pulling his Tortorella shit and not really giving these kids a chance to develop, like when we had the Blue Jackets on, they were talking about, Tortorella when he was the coach with them. When you have a team that's built and ready and developed, Tortorella could be a good coach. You need somebody to fire you up. You need somebody to just hold you accountable for everything that you do on the ice. He's good with that. But then, do you think that we would be where the position we were if in 3 years ago we hired John Tortorella and not Lindy Ruff?
No.
Yeah, you're right.
No. So that's why I always say guys like him and Babcock, I just don't – and I don't even hate Tortorella, but I don't want that with the Devils. I don't want them around these young players. It's just –
It's kind of like the Pat Burns analogy we had earlier, right? You saw all the success come 2003. They needed a different type of voice. They needed a different type of kick in the pants. Larry Robinson being like everybody's best friend probably doesn't win them that cup. Pat Burns does. Yeah. Different team.
And in 2000, you go the same way, right? Robbie Faturak, his whatever he was preaching was falling on deaf ears. And Lou knew enough that we have a really good team that can compete. This guy is holding us back. But gets rid of him, and then brings the guy in, like you said, everybody's best friend, Larry Robinson, right? Where Larry was able to get there and say, I've been with you guys for the last 10 years. I know you all. You all know what you're doing. Go out and fucking do it. And he just kind of gave him the big pat on the back, attaboys, we can do this, and they followed him. And then that got old. I mean, there was that time there after Jacques where we were kind of just, spitting out coaches every other year. And then it got worse. But now, at least, I hope we don't get into that position in a year or two with Lindy. What I hope is that maybe Lindy gets them really far this year, and maybe a cup final, possibly even a cup. And Lindy then steps down. And maybe a guy like Travis Green steps in and can take them to the next level. But I just don't want to see this team, like Lindy's way of coaching, falling on deaf ears. And I don't think it will. I think this team is still young enough. They still have a lot to learn.
Sure.
But like Dan mentioned the last show, like, are you ever going to, in a year or two, are you going to need that different voice? That somebody that can kind of.
But I think that's with any team now. It's a whole different NHL, right? There's no, like, we were talking last week too about how you'd have a goalie like, say, Belfour, right? He'd play for Blackhawks for how many seasons? He'd have shit the bed in the playoffs or whatever, and then next season you just know he's back. Now it's like a whole different NHL where you're like, okay, we're going to replace this guy or this guy. Your Richters and your Belfours and your guys like that, they stuck with the teams for a long time. And I think it was even the same with coaching kind of. But now I think it's if you fail, you just never know. You're the first to go,
Well, we talked about it too with the goaltending nowadays. They are all, you look at the stats and just look at the sizes, look at it. They're all exactly the same. They all play the same style. They're interchangeable. When you have a guy that's just a little bit better, you look at like the couple of guys that are better, right? The Vasilevskis, Shesterkin, Sorokin, Soros, Hollabucks, those guys are, but everyone else, they're all in this tight little group that you can just kind of interchange them. That's why it's all, 1A, 1B, and whoever's in there is in there. But it's not like where you had a play, oh shit, we're going to play Richter today. Well, he's a solid butterfly guy. And then you have, more of a stand-up guy and Patrick Waugh. And then you have the hybrid of Marty Brodeur and all this stuff. It's not like that anymore. They all play the same
flying
style.
Around all over the place.
Yeah, Herbe, who's just all about his reflexes, and that's it. I mean, the guy was not the best positionally, but he can make every save. And same with Hasek. Hasek got better as he went. He learned how to play more positionally, but he was strictly reflex his first few years in Buffalo. Just being able to see the puck and he can stop it.
Giant lanky arms, and legs
is
everywhere.
We all know Hasek is one of the best goalies we've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Like if you look at the top couple goalies, like he is on that list. I mean, the guy was such a talent.
I think that Brodeur was the best goalie of all time, and I put it there because he had an incredible ability to shake shit off. He let a bad goal in, and you just saw it in his face. Like, okay, that's gone. And he'd forget about it. And never, you see some of these goalies, and you look at any sport, a pitcher, lets up a fucking home run. And all of a sudden, everything just falls apart. A goalie lets one bad one in, and then the floodgates open. And we've seen it. We saw it in the playoffs with our guys.
I only saw Brodeur get flustered once. And it was in the 2003 Stanley Cup final. Flubbed it behind the boards, and he kind of kicked it in himself. It was either after letting in a questionable goal or then he let in a questionable goal. And you could say maybe for about a couple minutes he was flustered, but that's the same guy that also went out to have 3 shutouts in the finals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it didn't last long for sure.
Yeah, and you saw it doing all the time in most games. If he did let a goal in, it usually was, either had to be an absolutely gorgeous shot or it was just a bad goal. And but he would not let 2 bad goals in a game. Very rarely was this guy, coughing the puck up or doing anything stupid. Hasek to me was an amazing goaltender just because of his style, man. He was just fun to watch. Like Marty was a great positional goalie. Marty made a lot of saves that most goalies don't make just because he was in the right position. Maybe didn't even see the shot, just stopped it. Hasek was out of position
just so hard to
much,
get anything
and
past
he could just
him.
fucking make every save. Though it didn't matter where the
so
puck
weird.
was.
You got a generation of Devils fans. Maybe last year was the first year really watching them. Maybe they were always periphery fans, but then because the team was so good, they got more solid into it. But you got this team of fans that are like, oh my God, they're never out of a game. Like they can always come back and win. And that's going to stick with them forever. Just like we knew 20 years ago, oh, they're winning by 1, game's over.
Yeah.
Like to have that kind of, and it didn't always win. Of course, you lost some games. But in general, to have that kind of confidence, knowing you're basically going to win 9 out of 10 of these, was an incredible feeling. And we had it for a decade and a half.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. We
had the opposite, like 2 years ago where we lost every game in overtime. Yeah. We would always always found a way to lose. I mean, that's what was so surprising about last year. And we were talking about Ottawa about this, or not Ottawa. We were talking about who was it that had a successful year last year? The Kraken.
Yeah,
well,
Seattle.
We had we improved so much last year as the Devils, and there's a part of you in the back of your head that says, okay, I hope we just don't come out flat, man.
Sure.
Of course.
Is that possibility? Because some people could say we have the talent, though. First of all, before I say this, our lineup is talented as shit. But we overachieved last year, especially if you go back to the year before that.
Well, I mean, I think the 13-game winning streak was something that nobody saw coming. And once that was over, and I think a lot of people, myself included, was kind of like, okay, are they going to come down to earth a little bit here? And in December, they really looked like they did. And
see, that's the thing, right? We did have the opposite of that 13-game too, basically.
Yes.
In a nice small period.
So if they can just be more consistent.
And when Dan and I were just doing this show, and we were talking in December doing shows, it was like, okay, now what's going to happen in the new year? Are we that team that was on that 13-game winning streak, or are we the team that has won, one of the last 6 the whole month of December? And it was, we had the last Friday game, the last game of December was against Pittsburgh. We ended up playing a fantastic game. We won it. And that was after that was like pretty much 4 out of 5, 3 out of 4 for the rest of the year. So they were able to kind of go through that slump and work their way out of it, which was something that I give them a ton of credit for, because that young of a team, you could have seen it go the other way. And it didn't. And I attribute Lindy Ruff. I attribute those guys in the locker room. I do agree with you, Tony, that having this much hype around them does make them nervous. It makes me very nervous because, I mean, go to football. I mean, all everybody was talking about the entire fucking offseason was Aaron Rodgers, the Jets. And the guy got 4 plays in, and you're probably never going to see him again. So, Jack Hughes gets hurt in game 1 or game 2 like he did a couple of years ago. That changes everything.
Is this the most hype the Devils? I know I've watched the Devils since the late 80s. You guys have watched them forever. Is this the most hype they've ever, the expectation, is this the highest that you've ever seen for them before the season starts? Because I can't remember where they've been. I mean, you're talking about a team that has superstars on it now. I mean,
you're talking about a new world, Tony. That's the problem. So even when they were legitimately winning a cup, and then the next year in 2001, they were even expected to repeat. They won in 2003. Even with those level of teams, it didn't have this much hype. And it's not just because the analysts were still saying whatever they were saying about the Devils, but the world has changed. Like the social media aspect of all this, podcasts like this, hyping it up. It's everywhere now for a team that arguably hasn't done shit. I mean, we beat the Rangers and came back from 0-2, and then we looked like crap against Cal. We really haven't done much to have this much hype on us. It's unprecedented for sure.
I mean, the moves that they made in the offseason, mainly just locking up Timo and bringing Toffoli over, I think are huge. And I just, like I said before, I look at this top 6, and I just don't know who's got a better top 6. And, you look at the bottom 6, and we got Andre Palat on the third line. You got Eric Hall on the third line. If Alex Holtz works out and plays well on that third line, or if it's Graham Clark, or if it's somebody that we don't even know right now. But if one of those guys can step up and give you, maybe 40, 45 points this year, that makes that – and then you know what you're getting with that fourth line. Yeah. And I think the addition of Nolan Foote on that fourth line can also give him some offense.
We always forget about Marino, right? I mean, I don't know. I always forget about him, and he's such a great player on that team. And whenever I go through these, whenever we talk about this lineup, for some reason, I'm always like, oh, that's right, Marino.
I think our defensive core is going to be a lot better than they were last year. And they weren't bad last year at all. They were pretty good, but I think they're going to even be better. I think, we talked about it. There will be some hiccups early on in the year. But I think when this team clicks, they're going to be unstoppable. I just hope that everything else, I hope they stay healthy. I hope the goaltending ends up holding up their end of the bargain. And I think that they're going to be fine. It's a different kind of attitude that you see with this team too. I mean, we talk about how Matthew Tkachuk changed the entire locker room in Florida, right? Like he brought that swagger, that toughness, that grit, and they all kind of took it, and they all assimilated to him and became all basically the Florida Tkachuks. You see that
scored the
Jack.
goal. Remember, he hopped off the ice right away, and everyone followed him like a line of ducks.
Yep, and you see
celebration.
And you see that with Jack. Jack has this Jack's just a fucking cool dude, and he's got this kind of winning personality. He wants the spotlight on him, and he produces every time he has it on him. If this guy knows he's on prime time, he shows off, and he has fucking great games. So like they all kind of take that from Jack. I know Nico's the captain, and he's the heart and soul, but Jack Hughes is just such a special player. Like I've never seen this much hype for the Devils, like you asked before, Tone. Never. Even years we've won cups going into the following year, there was never a whole lot of hype about us. Jack brings that, though. Like, he is just must see. He's got to stay healthy, and if he does, he can have, he can be in the conversation for the MVP this year. I really believe he could.
Because at the end of the day, it is about one thing: injuries. That's going to be what gets to die by the sword. Because last year we were very lucky; we did not have to deal with too much.
And Jack's size worries me. He is a bit slight, and that worries me. So, on that note, I know it's getting close to 5, and Bob's got to run, so we are going to wrap it up here.